Hello all, welcome to the fourth session of Management Principles and Applications. The current session is the fourth topic under the unit Introduction, that is Theory Base of Management. Now, what are the theories of management? Management theories are the set of general rules that guide the managers to manage an organization. So these are going to be the set of general rules which would show light to the managers in order to know that how are they going to manage their own organizations. These theories, they are an explanation to assist all the employees to effectively relate to the business goals and implement effective means to achieve the same. Now these theories, what will they do? They will tell the employees what are the business goals and how to effectively achieve them. There are three theories of management. The first is classical organization theory, second is neoclassical theory, and the third is modern organization theory. Today we will be discussing classical organization theory. Classical organization theory. It is an approach to management and it is a set of homogeneous ideas on the management of organizations that evolved in the late 19th century and early 20th century. This perspective emerges from the Industrial Revolution and centers on theories of efficiency. We have talked about it that when there was small owners, small businesses, owner will do everything, then management was not required that much. But with the divorce of ownership and management, and with this industrial revolution, management came into existence, the rules were necessary, and these theories were formulated. At the end of 19th century, when factory production became pervasive and large-scale organizations were raised, people looked for ways to motivate employees and improve productivity. So now they were looking at the people, the employees, and how to motivate them, how to lead them properly to increase the productivity. A need for management ideas came to pass which directed to classical theory. Management theories in early period were not really theories like they look here, but they were some discrete practices or experiences. So one manager has some kind of experience, some management expert is observed it and found that okay, yeah, it can be made a scientific rule. So whosoever person actually got the way or got more production, there were people there who studied, the researchers studied him, and they would have liked to make it as a theory. Classical approach of management are the first studies of management which emphasized on rationality and making organizations and workers as efficient as possible. It offers a convenient framework for the education and training of future managers. According to Betrol, the classical school is characterized by highly structured with emphasis on formal organization with clearly defined functions, detailed rules and autocratic leadership. It is not democratic, it is autocratic. So the employees were directed to do things. So it is a highly structured phenomena, a formal one. There are detailed functions, rules, and someone is directing and controlling them autocratically. The classical approach to management was the product of the first concentrated effort to develop a body of management thought. In fact, the management writers who participated in the effort are considered as the pioneers of management study. So those people who were, very firstly formulating the management rules are actually the pioneers of management. The classical approach recommends that managers continually strive to increase organizational efficiency. So the goal was organizational efficiency and increased productivity in order to increase production. The classical approach to management can be divided into mainly three distinct areas. First is scientific management, second is administrative management, and third is bureaucratic management. There were different people who actually propounded these rules or theories of scientific management, administrative, and bureaucratic management. Let's see who all did it. The three greatest proponents of classical theory are: first one is Taylor for scientific management, Fayol for administrative management, and Weber for bureaucratic management. Let us see what was scientific. Scientific management concentrates on one best way to perform a task. That is, it investigates how a task situation can be structured to get the highest production. The process of finding this one best way has become known as scientific management. So there is, we say that, okay, what is the scientific way of doing things? So scientific way is the most efficient way, one best way of doing anything. Although the techniques of scientific management could conceivably be applied to management at all levels, the research applications, and illustrations relate mostly to lower level managers. So this scientific management was actually not for the top management, but for the workers and the supervisors thereon. Therefore, theory is also referred to as lower level management analysis. Scientific management consists primarily of the work of, as I have told you, Frederick W. Taylor, and then there were Frank and Lillian Gilbreth and Henry L. GANTT. Let us see all these three people, what have they worked on in India. Frederick W. Taylor, he started his career as an apprentice in small shop in Philadelphia in 1875. He witnessed much inefficiencies and sought to create a mental revolution among both workers and managers by defining clear guidelines for improving production efficiency. He argued that the four principles of management would result in prosperity for both workers and managers. Now, what were those four principles he propounded? The first was to develop a science. He said that everyone is doing whatever they want to do, but there is one best way of doing it. That means there is one scientific way of doing it. Hence, for each element of individual's work, let us replace it by the old rule of thumb method. Rule of thumb is that whichever fits, whatever fits, you just put it, or with your whims and fancies, whatever you feel like, you do that way. But no, he said that for increasing the productivity and working efficiently, you need to develop a science, make the rules basically. Then the second was scientifically select and then train, teach, and develop the workers. Now, if you would ask your grandmother or grandfather, they had a time when if people were looking for a job, there was nothing known as resumes. They'll not be making their resume, or they would just go to somebody and ask for work, and that guy would keep them. So in that, on those times, there was no scientific selection methods. But nowadays we see that there is an HR department who, you will make a resume, you will submit your resume, they will see what all credentials you have, and does your credentials suit the job which you would be doing, and then they would still be training you, teaching you, and developing you to work for that job, right? So that all started from scientific management. Then the third is heartily cooperate with the workers so as to ensure that all work is done in accordance with the principles of science that has been developed. So he said that the rules which you are making, you have to make workers a party to it, and it should not be that they do not know anything and you're just controlling them. So cooperate with them, ensure that they understand it well. And the last is divide work and responsibility, almost equality between management and workers. So workers, they do not know, they do not have the long-term perspective. They go with the short-term perspective. It is the management's responsibility to break the jobs and fit the workers in that. So the management will do all the work for which it is better suited than the workers. Workers, what is the difference between a simple supervisor and a CEO? CEO is seeing the vision and mission of the organization, knows all the objectives of the organization, which he with his team breaks it into smaller objectives. Those smaller objectives are given to, let us say, vice presidents. Those vice presidents, they break the objectives and uh, give them to the managers, and then managers to the lower level workers. So hence all those objectives, they just are broken down into smaller objectives and then achieved on the ground level, and it goes in a pyramid form. So this division of work and responsibility started from scientific management. Now the Gilberts, they were also significant contributors to the scientific methods, in the sense that they also focused on handicapped as well as normal workers. So they subscribed to the idea of finding and using the best way to perform a job. The primary investigative tools in the Gilbreth's research were motion studies. Now, this was important. You know, time and motion studies. So, motion study is that where this worker is going, how far is his next job. So, how much time is he spending on that job? Is he wasting too much time on the shop floor? So, to study their motion and finding out the best way to do it. For example, I give you, let's say you have your classes. So if, let's say, one first class is in room number 1 and the second class is in room number 40, so it would take a lot of time to go there. And whereas somebody who has got some other class which has got in room number 39, it would be easier for them to go to 40 rather than coming to the first classroom. So the timetable making committee would actually be seeing that the students, because 40-50 students moving from one class to another in every class will actually waste their time, right? So they would be putting you in the adjacent classes, or would prefer to keep you in one classroom only. So this is your motion study. Okay, time and motion studies were performed, and motion analysis is used today primarily to establish job performance standards. Henry L. Gantt. Gantt was interested in increasing workers' efficiency like other two, Gilberts and Taylor. He attributed unsatisfactory or ineffective tasks and piece rates primarily to the fact that these task rates were set according to what had been done by workers in the past, or on somebody's opinion of what workers could do. So what he said, that you observe certain people whosoever are doing the best. So on a machine, let us say one worker is making in the same time, same machine, similar machine, making 50 products. Other one is making 40 products. So he said that the most efficient is 50. So let us keep this standard as 50. So if you will work on this 50, if you will not be able to make 50, then you are ineffective or unsatisfactory. Then you would not be given that much compensation. And the second was piece rate, incentive pay for each product piece. So let us say on an average people are making 40 pieces per product. So 40 is the effective, or let us say satisfactory value, and over and above that, every worker who would be making more products would be paid on the piece rate system. So that is a good incentive. So after 40, whatever I'll make, I will be earning some amount on every product I made. So the person who was making 50 would be happy that he is earning a lot, and this worker who was making 35 would actually be motivated to work more to get this piece rate. So it was what GANTT propounded. Now we come to administrative management. Whereas scientific managers emphasized job design approaching the study of management, managers who embrace the comprehensive view. Now this comprehensive view was the second era of classical approach. The administrative management came in. Administrative management focuses on organizational efficiency. Now the first one, scientific management, was about work efficiency. This approach is also called comprehensive analysis of management. Among the well-known contributors, HENRI FAYOL, Bernard, Brown, Dennison, Gulick, Riley and Mooney, and Oliver Shelton are there. The most notable contributor, however, in administrative management is HENRI FAYOL. His book, General and Industrial Management, presents a management philosophy that still guides many modern managers. HENRI FAYOL, he is usually regarded as the pioneer of administrative theory. And why is that so? Because he gave the principles, the functions of management as planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, and controlling. They are still considered worthwhile divisions under which to study, analyze, and affect the management process. We will be doing all these at length in our coming units. The general principles of management suggested by Fayol are still considered useful in contemporary management practices. Here are 14 principles we'll talk about, and in the same order he gave. The first is division of work. The principle of division of work tells us that as far as possible, the whole work should be divided into different parts, and each individual should be assigned only one part of the work according to his ability and taste, rather than giving the whole work to one person. When a particular individual performs the same job repeatedly, he will become an expert in doing that particular part of the whole job. Consequently, the benefits of specialization will become available. Now, for example, a furniture manufacturer gets an order for manufacturing 100 lecture stands. He has 5 workers who will do the job. There are 2 ways to complete this order. First, every worker should be asked to complete 20 lecture stands. The second method can be distributing different parts of the lecture stand legs, top board, center support, assembling and polishing to all the 5 workers in a manner that only one worker does the same job for all the 100 lecture stands. Here, Fayol's indication is to the second way to do this job and not the first one. The second, in this, the principle of division of labor, it applies not only to the workers but also equally to the managers. For example, if a manager is tuned to work on the same kind of activities for a longer period of time, he'll certainly be an expert in his particular job. Consequently, more and beneficial decisions can be taken in comparatively lesser time by him. So the positive effect or the advantages of specialization are obtained, such as increase in the quality of work, increase in the speed of production, decrease in the wastage of resources. Violating effect, the above, if you violate them, the positive effects of specialization will not be available. Then we come to the second one, authority and responsibility. According to this principle, authority and responsibility should go hand in hand. It means that when a particular individual is given a particular work and he is made responsible for the results, this can be possible only when he is given sufficient authority to discharge his responsibility. It is not proper to make a person responsible for any work in the absence of authority. Let's say the result of authority is responsibility. That is what Fayol said. It is the natural result of authority and essentially another aspect of authority. And whenever authority is used, responsibility are automatically born. Now, for example, the CEO of a company, he has to double the sales target of the sales manager for a coming year. To achieve this target, authority for appointing necessary sales representatives, advertising according to the need, etc., shall have to be allowed. In case these things are not allowed, the sales manager cannot be held responsible for anything, right? So if you are giving authority, you have to give, if you are expecting responsibility, you have to give the authority also. The third is discipline. Discipline is essential for any successful work performance, be it in your college, was it in school. So whenever there is discipline, then only people perform. FAYOL considers discipline to mean obedience, respect for authority, and observance of established rules. Discipline can be established by providing good supervision at all levels, clearly explaining the rules and implementing a system of reward and punishment. A manager can present a good example to his subordinates by disciplining himself. Now, for example, if the employees break their promise of working up to their full capacity, it will amount to the violation of obedience. Similarly, a sales manager has the authority to do business on credit. But in case he allows this facility not to the general customers but only to his relatives and friends, this will amount to ignoring his respect to his authority. So it is the discipline, when it is not done, then it can bring the undesirable results. Then the next is unity of command. According to the principle of unity of command, an individual employee should receive orders from only one superior at a time, and that employee should be answerable only to that superior. If there are many superiors giving orders to the same employee, he will not be able to decide as to which orders is to be given priority. He thus finds himself in a confused situation. Such a situation adversely affects the efficiency of the subordinates. On the other hand, when there are many superiors, every superior would like his orders to be given priority. This ego problem creates a possibility of a clash. Consequently, their own efficiency is likely to be affected. So, for the efficient organizations, it is necessary to have unity of command. Next is unity of direction. Unity of direction means that there should be one head for one plan for a group of activities having the same objective. In other words, there should be one plan of action for a group of activities having the same objective, and there should be one manager to control them. Okay, let's take an example. Suppose an automobile company is manufacturing two products, namely scooters and cars. Hence, they have two divisions. As each product has its own market and problems, therefore each division must have its own targets. Now, each division must plan its targets as per its environmental conditions to get better results. It is necessary to distinguish between the meaning of the unity of command and the unity of direction. Unity of command means that there should be only one manager at a time to give command to an employee, whereas unity of direction means that there should be only one manager exercising control over all the activities having the same objective. Now, this is the difference. Next is, one more thing I would like to tell you, that regarding the unity of command and unity of direction, that FAYOL felt that for the efficient running of an organization, the unity of direction is important, while the unity of command is important to enhance the efficiency of employees. So unity of direction is for the efficiency of employees, and this is for the efficiency of the organization. Now, next is subordination of individual interests to general interests. This principle can be named priority to general interest over individual interest. So, general interest would always be preferred than the individual interest. According to this principle, the general interest or the interest of organization is above everything. If one is asked to place individual interest and the general interest in order of priority, definitely general interest will be placed at the first place. For example, if a manager takes some decision which harms him personally but results in a great profit to the company, he should certainly give priority to the interest of the company and take the decision accordingly. On the contrary, if some decision helps the manager personally but results in a great loss to the company, then such a decision should never be taken. For example, a purchase manager of a company has to purchase 100 tons of raw material. His son happens to be the supplier along with other suppliers in the market. The manager purchases the raw material from the firm of his son at a rate higher than the market price. This will profit the manager personally, but the company will incur heavy losses. So this situation is absolutely undesirable, and it tells that you have to prioritize the general interest of the organization to the individual interests. Next is remuneration to the employees. FAYOL is of the opinion that the employees should get a fair remuneration so that the employees and the owners find equal amount of satisfaction. It is the duty of the manager to ensure that employees are being paid remuneration according to their work. If, however, they are not paid properly for their work, they will not do their work with perfect dedication, honesty, and capacity. As a result, the organization shall have to face failures. Proper remuneration depends on some factors like cost of living, maybe demand of labor, and their ability. FAYOL felt that in order to motivate the employees apart from general remuneration, they should be given some monetary and non-monetary incentives. Now, what kind of incentives? For example, suppose that the things are getting dearer and dearer and the company is getting good profits. In such a situation, the remuneration of employees should be increased even without their asking. If this is not done, the employees will leave the company at the first opportunity and the labor turnover will increase. Expenses shall have to be incurred on new recruitments, which shall bring loss to the company. So in any case, you have to give fair remuneration to your employees. Next is centralization and decentralization. Now, according to this principle, the superiors should adopt effective centralization instead of complete centralization and complete decentralization. By effective centralization, FAYOL actually meant that authority should be completely centralized. He felt that superiors should keep the authority of taking important decisions in their own hands, while the authority to take daily decisions and decisions of less importance can be delegated to the subordinates. The ratio of centralization and decentralization can differ in different situations. Now, for example, it is advantageous to have more centralization in a small business unit and more decentralization in a big business unit. Or it is like the decisions in the respect of determining the objectives and policies, expansion of business. These are relatively important decisions. They should remain in the hands of top management. On the other hand, authority for the purchase of raw material, granting leave to the employee, etc. can be delegated to the lower level management. Now, what are the positive effects of the decentralization? It decreases the workload of superiors. It helps in better and quick decision making. It increases it encourages the subordinates or lower level managements because they are also taking certain decisions. Now, if we violate it, then unnecessary increase in the workload of superiors will happen. Impatient and wrong decisions can be taken by superiors in case of complete centralization, and there can be decline in the encouragement of the subordinates. The next principle is scalar chain. What do you mean by scalar chain? Now, it refers to a formal line of authority which moves from highest to the lowest ranks in a straight line. So if we talk about a scalar chain in our college, so it's something like the principal, your teachers, non-teaching staff, and the students. This chain must be followed in a strict manner. It means each communication must move from top to bottom and vice versa in a straight line. The important condition here is that no step should be overlooked during communication. So actually FAYOL explained this principle with the help of a ladder. So for example, in a company, the employee F wants to have a contact with employee P. So according to the principle of scalar chain, F shall have to reach to A through the medium of E, D, C, B, and then having contact with L, M, N, O shall reach P. Thus, F shall have to take the help of all the 9 steps to have business contacts with P, or for that matter, A. Now, due to more clear systems of authority and communication, problems can be solved faster. Now, there is one exception to the scalar chain, and that is known as gangplank. This concept was developed to establish a direct contact with the employee of equal rank in case of emergency to avoid delay in communication. For example, in the previous example only as shown, so F can have direct contact with employee P, but for doing so, employee F and P shall have to seek the prior permission of their immediate bosses E and O. Okay, hence, the communication can run faster. Now we come to the next one, that is order. Now, according to this principle of order, a right person should be placed at the right job and a right thing should be placed at the right place. So, according to FAYOL, every enterprise should have 2 different orders: material order for physical resources and social order for human resources. Keeping the physical resources in order means that a proper place for everything and everything at its right place. Similarly, keeping the human resources in order means a place for everyone and everyone in his appointed place. Maintaining these 2 orders properly will ensure that everybody knows his workplace and that he is to do and from where he would get his required material. Now, consequently, all the available resources in the organization will be utilized properly. Then we come to equity. Now, this principle tells that the managers should treat their subordinates in a just and kind manner so that they develop a feeling of dedication and attachment for their work. All the employees should be treated equally and impartially. So FAYOL actually told that it is in connection with this principle that there should not be any equality of treatment between a person whose work is really good and a person who is shirker by nature. Rather, the latter should be treated sternly. Doing so would be equitable. It is because of this point of view that Taylor has presented his differential remuneration method. So more efficient people should get more. Then we come to stability of tenure of personnel. From the point of view of management, it is absolutely harmful to change the employees frequently as it is a reflection of inefficient management. Therefore, according to this principle, there should be stability of tenure of the employees so that the work continues efficiently. Instability in tenure of employees is a cause of poor management and results. High rate of labor turnover will result in increased expenses because of selecting them time and again and giving them training afresh. It also lowers the prestige of the organization and creates a feeling of insecurity among the employees, which keeps them busy in finding out new avenues of work. Consequently, the sense of dedication cannot be created among them. Now, for example, it is true that if workers in a company are not treated well and the atmosphere in the company is also unhealthy, the employees will not stay for long. So in other words, they leave the company at the first opportunity available. This situation is absolutely harmful. Also, let us take another example that a laborer completes 10 units of good in a day. Another laborer who happens to be a relative of supervisor completes 8 units, but both get equal remuneration. Now, this also violates the principle of equality, and the second laborer should get less remuneration than the first one. If that will not happen, the people would see this discrimination and would like to leave the organization. Now we come to the next principle, and that is initiative. What does initiative means? It means the capacity to work while expressing one's thoughts. So according to FAYOL, it is the duty of manager to encourage the feeling of initiative among his employees for doing some work or taking some decisions, but within the limits of authority and discipline. It will be possible only when the manager will welcome the thoughts of his or her subordinates. By doing so, the subordinates will present new and useful ideas time and again, and gradually they will become an integral part of the organization. In order to make this process a success, a manager will have to abandon his false sense of prestige. Now, for example, a salesman suggests to his sales manager to implement a new advertisement technique. The sales manager sends him away by telling him that it is not possible and ignores the suggestion altogether. Now, in this situation, the salesman who has been admonished and belittled will never venture to offer any other suggestion in future, because his desire of taking initiative has been suppressed. On the contrary, if his suggestion was heard carefully, even if it wouldn't have been implemented, but even if he was heard, he could have taken the courage to offer some suggestion in future. So such an action would simply have encouragement towards the initiative taking in the employees. So what are the positive impacts of this initiative? It increases the thinking power of the employees. They also feel that yes, we can think. The cooperation of employees in implementing the decisions. If it is my idea, then I will cooperate with my supervisor a lot in implementing that idea. So I'll be working with all my heart. And one more thing, that it increases the sense of attachment to the organization, right? So all these are positives of improving the or encouraging the initiative taking in the employees. And the last, esprit de corps. As per this principle, a manager should continuously make efforts to develop a team spirit among the subordinates. To do this, he or she should use the word we. Always use we instead of I in the conversation with subordinates. So in this way, the spirit of the organization will come in, and all the employees will feel for the organization. They'll be attached to the organization and they'll contribute in the organizational productivity and effectiveness. So these were the 14 FAYOL'S principles, and when they are worked in sync, then at that time they gave very useful results. Next we come to bureaucratic management. Bureaucratic management, it is a formal system of organization that is based on clearly defined hierarchical levels and roles in order to maintain efficiency and effectiveness. So this theory was developed by Max Weber, and it is widely used in management of both public and private sector organizations. According to the bureaucratic management approach, organizations are usually divided into hierarchy. So there is a hierarchical structure. These divisions help in creating strong lines of authority and control within the organization. So what is it? Weber said that there has to be hierarchy in the organizations, which would bring the unity of command. Once there is a set hierarchy, so FAYOL'S unity of command will come in, and a set authority and responsibility relationship would also be seen or visible. So Max Weber was the first of management theories who developed the theory of authority, structure and relations based on an ideal type of organization. He called it as a bureaucracy. Bureaucratic management depends on administration devices. Now, Weber presents an ideal organization structure. So, what bureaucracy or bureaucratic management talks about is not about the workers' efficiency and organizational efficiency only. He suggested a structure for that. He said that organizations can have a structure. So, what were the four principles he suggested in this bureaucratic management approach? The first is hierarchical positions. So we keep a hierarchy like we have discussed. So there is a chairman or the president at the top. Then there are vice presidents of different functions. And then there are senior managers. Then there are managers, then junior managers, then assistant managers. And then there are executives, senior executives, and then executives. So there is a huge hierarchy, which when it is laid out well, it gives a clear understanding of authority responsibility relationship. The second was rules of the system. So because there is this hierarchy, all the rules are also set. Division of labor for specialization. I have discussed it in FAYOL'S principle, and it actually reinstated this division of labor, because the moment there would be division, so somebody who's working in accounts department will become very efficient in accounting. So somebody who's working in sales would become efficient and in sales and marketing. So there would, after a point in time, there would be specialization. For example, everyone does graduation. After graduation, you are supposed to choose your specialization, that you want to go into accounting or marketing or HR or in technology or information systems. So your specialization is created then only, and then the organizations would be hiring you on the basis of your specialization. So this is how the organizational structure actually leads inefficiency by introducing specialization. And while this was a formal structure of the organization, Weber said that impersonal relationships are also important. So formal and informal communication, both are important. We should be, an organization would encourage impersonal relationships also, till they do not harm. After this, in these impersonal relationships, what is the negative of impersonal relationships? The trade unions were set. So that was a negative impact of impersonal relationships. With that, we come to the appraisal of classical approach. We have seen there were three approaches: scientific approach to it, then the FAYOL'S approach, and then bureaucratic approach systems. So now in classical approach, what was, so scientific management, administrative management, and bureaucratic management. So scientific management focused on the employees. Administrative theory focused on the organizations. Bureaucratic management focused on eliminating managerial inconsistencies. That means it emphasized the position. So it emphasized the position rather than the person or organization. Person centric was scientific management. Organization centric was administrative theory. But it was the bureaucratic management was the one which actually emphasized on the position. So classical approach highlighted the universal character of management principles. It made a clear distinction between operating activities and managerial activities. So for lower management, it was scientific management you will work with, and for managerial activities, you will take care of the administrative theory. It also identified the application of scientific methods to the problems of management and highlighted the need for mutual cooperation between employers and employees. So it talked about the mutual cooperation, problem solving at the lower level as well as at the top management level. So if we see, the classical theory is simple, still it is formal, but universal. So simple in the sense that it actually took care of the lower level management as well as the upper level management. It said that this rule of thumb should not apply. We should create rules, and the rules are simple, that there has to be an authority responsibility relationship, there has to be a scalar chain. So these are very simple in the sense that um, they are obvious that we should be doing this way, right? So they just propounded these theories which were very simple. Then they are formal. So most of the emphasis was on the formal relationships, formal structures. Not much was said about the informal relationships, though Weber actually recognized also these informal relationships, but not much emphasis was given on the informal ones. And then it is universal. So mostly classical theory applies on the manufacturing units. So universally these principles and rules and theories are still applicable with few exceptions. Now, why classical approach has been criticized and the neoclassical approach came. So the first, this theory is said to be too formal. So it was generally we were talking about the formal relationships. Informal was not explained much. Secondly, it is more appropriate for stable and simple organizations than for today's dynamic and complex organizations. So we never thought that people would be working from home. You take Google, Infosys, Tata, uh, you know, their employees, they are working from home from long back. And so information technology actually changed the complexity of the organization, and no more these rules were actually applied to these organizations. We will see the exceptions in our later sessions. Thirdly, it often prescribed the universal procedures that are not appropriate in some settings. So universal procedures are there, but for a category of organizations. Not all organizations would fall in the same framework, so that all these rules can be applied on all the organizations. So these are the references which I used in this presentation. And thank you so much for listening.